morning, everybody. Today's episode is on grasses. Grasses are the most common species of plant found around the earth. If it wasn't for grasses, humanity wouldn't be where it is today. It's thanks to the ancestors of grass plants like maize, wheat and rice that civilizations have grown to the size that they are today. Looking over this savanna area here, you can believe that grasses cover over 1/3 of the land mass on Earth today. Grasses are found from the tropics right the way up to the Arctic Circle. Now, there are over 9,700 species of grasses, of which 967 of those species occur in southern Africa. Thankfully for us, they've made the names quite descriptive. We'll go through a few of them here. So as I mentioned, grass names are quite descriptive. As you can see with this species over here, it looks like a fish skeleton. This is called herringbone grass for obvious reasons, as I mentioned, a fish skeleton appearance to it. Now, this species of grass is a subclimax species. It's also very fibrous and hard, so it's unpalatable. Animals don't really like to eat it. You also find it in your more disturbed soils, so areas that have maybe been plowed or old farmlands and what have you. But there have been accounts of it actually being used as hand brushes to clean floors and what have you. So that's one good use of your herringbone grass. Another good example of the descriptive names in grass is this Natal red top grass here, as it was first documented in Natal, and for obvious reasons the inflorescences show a red coloration to them. Another good example of descriptive names is this grass here. This is what you call sawtooth love grass. As you can see, it almost looks like a serrated shark tooth, the seeds of this grass plant. And now why it's called a love grass is because it takes on a very pink coloration tinge to it, and it looks quite pretty. So if you collect a bunch of them and you present them to a lady, she won't be disappointed. Although they're not flowers, you can just have grass here in Africa. As a nature guide, people will often ask me, why are the animals on the short grass where it doesn't seem that there's much biomass, rather than being in areas where the grass is a lot longer? Now, the reason for this is palatability. What is palatability, you may ask? Palatability is the edibleness of the grass. Now, when grasses are younger, like these green grass shoots over here, most of the grass plant is palatable, so animals will be able to feed on this. So this is why you'll find most of your animals in these areas where the grass is a lot shorter. Now, if you look across on this side over here at these grasses, you will see that these grasses are a lot longer and the animals aren't really feeding here. This is because the grass plant has gotten a lot older, and if you take a look here, it's gotten a lot more fibrous. Also, it's lost its nutritional value because a lot of the time going into the winter months, the grass plants will actually pull the nutrients down into the roots where they'll be stored over the months to be able to remain safe from frost conditions. While we're on the topic of grass palatability, there are a few other factors to take into consideration. Obviously, one is climate, meaning the amount of rainfall and the amount of sun that you're going to have in areas. So you'll have sauerveld, which is areas where grass get generally about 725 mils, and then you'll get your sweetveld, where the rainfall is between 250 to about 500 mils, and then in between the two is your mixed veld. Now, sauerveld grasses tend to be less palatable, obviously because there's a lot more nutrients being washed away because of the amount of rain, and then your sweetveld, these grasses tend to be a lot more palatable for animals to consume. So palatability goes hand in hand with the grazing value of the grasses. Simply put, the grazing value is the grass species' potential to produce palatable plant material. Now, what we're referring to is grass grazing value may be defined as the grass species value in terms of bulk grazing animals like zebra and buffalo. To understand why you find different types of grass in different areas, you need to understand plant communities. Now, plant communities is what you refer to as your succession stages. Now, plant succession is the progressive development of vegetation in an area through a series of different plant communities, finally terminating in a climax community. Now, if we look down here, you'll see a pioneer species. Okay, so what we're looking at over here, this is a tassel 3 on. You can see this area does not have much nutrients to it. This is very, very bare area, disturbed area, very rocky. Now, this plant can survive on very few nutrients. So this is your pioneer species. With this species dying off, this is going to leave more nutrients like this dead stuff into the soil, which will allow different species, your subclimax species, like these guys over here, your Natal redtop, your Melinus repens. Now that these guys have got some more nutrients, they can establish because they need a bit more nutrients. And then finally, when they die off, putting a lot more nutrients into the soil, you'll terminate in your climax community of grass plants. You can see this area is covered in plants. An example of climax species of grasses is this spear grass over here. Named spear grass because of its seeds, which are like spears. Not favored by your sheep farmers because this ruins their wool. Now, if you take a look over here, you'll see this matted up piece of grasses over here. This is because the grass seeds are what you call hygroscopic. So, if these seeds get wet, they will drill into the ground. Here you can see the spear grass seed reacting to the water. See how the tail is slowly spinning. Now, it's not very dry now, but the drier the seed, the more it is going to spin. And what happens is this spinning action will actually drill this point of the seed into the soil, planting it in this way. In nature, it's not just trees that make up the homes of animals. If you take a look on this grass plant over here, you actually see that some hornets have used it to set up their house over here. Grass plants can hold many secrets, like this little spider. Creatures like these brown ear ticks will only set up temporary residence at the end of grass plants like this, as they wait for their host to pass as they latch on. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode on grasses. We've only just touched the surface though, so if you guys would like to see more videos and more topics on grasses, please leave your comments below. And then also, folks, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, take it easy.